You're like Christopher Bell after he got out of the car. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Splash and Go on the Catching the Draft channel. I'm Eben, this is Kim, and we just watched a race. It was a race at Circuit of the Americas. How do I sum up the first, let's say, I don't know, like 75 laps?
Snooze fest. Not very exciting. Although, I mean, there was the action with Chase Elliott getting spun out. But I would say, other than that, not super eventful, which isn't such a bad thing. I think there was good racing. There was clean racing.
Right from the get-go, you had action, and it was looking like we were going to be in for quite a race. Ross Chastain just sending it into the first corner. Classic Ross Chastain. Yep. Hadn't seen that guy in a while.
Where have you been?
Completely took out Chase Elliott. Kudos to Chase Elliott, though. His spotter, gaslighting him, telling him he needs to go clean him out. And Chase Elliott's like, meh, I just wanted to make sure I didn't do anything wrong. So, and by far, Chase Elliott, I believe, had the best car today. Yeah. Even though he didn't win, to go all the way to the back, work his way all the way up to, where did he finish? 4th?
Yeah. I mean, you don't make a comeback like that unless you have a really
No,
I
think Chase Elliott is back.
Shady's back. Tell a friend.
Yeah.
Like, that was my big takeaway from today. Like, his bread and butter was always road courses, and this was a really strong outing for him. I think this is a big confidence booster. I think Chase Elliott is going to have a really, really strong year. Christopher Bell. That dude. Whew. Look out.
I was going to say, he kind of raced the tires off of it at the end there. He was really making some gains and held on to it and didn't wreck Kyle.
That was the thing I wanted to speak on, is what I saw today was the top stars of NASCAR, okay? The top 3. Christopher Bell, William Byron, Tyler Reddick. 3 of the top stars of NASCAR. And the amount of respect that they showed while racing each other as hard as they could, that is what NASCAR is all about.
And William Byron even talked about it in his post-race interview of, kind of wanting to be careful. They've always had clean races, so he didn't want to do them dirty. I think there's a lot to be said for that, when lately we've just had some really dirty, not lately, but in the last racing season, particularly last year, there was some really dirty racing going on.
I'm really starting to feel old school NASCAR again. If you look at the last week in Atlanta, like, drivers going up to Hocevar and they weren't fighting, but Blaney and Chastain, they went to Hocevar and they were just like, hey, listen, like, good run. And they were a little peeved, but they talked through it with him. Very much reminds me of back in the 90s, right? Just brings back that old school feel of, okay, we're actually trying to race again.
And I wonder too, like, how much of this now is drivers that are much more comfortable in the cars. I know that for the right after we were in the next gen car, there was just learning the car and figuring it out. It was kind of a learning curve for everybody. We had some problems that came from that. And I think now we've got drivers that are handling the cars better. They have more experience driving the cars. So I think they have a better handle on how to drive them and not wreck somebody, and maybe that plays a role in it too.
That's a really good point, that now these drivers are getting comfortable in a completely new style of car. You have to completely change your driving style going into this new car. Now that they are figuring it out, drivers now kind of know what's driver and what's car, right? Like sometimes you get an aero push and you just lose the car and you wreck, right? But now they know when it's a driver not having skill and when it's just the car having flaws like every other generation of NASCAR has had. I also hope that it's a showing of respect between the drivers, which I think is really needed. So I think it's a good combination of both.
Yeah.
But overall, I kind of want to talk about just the kind of renaissance NASCAR is having this year. Like, I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, and corporate sponsors have been very prevalent at the tracks this year. And that's huge because the biggest complaint of teams is sponsorship money.
Money, 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 money.
They want to sponsor the cars. That's really good for NASCAR, bringing in more money.
Money, 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 money.
To the sport. TV ratings have been up every week so far. Granted, a small margin. But what I really wanted to highlight was the increase in viewership in the Xfinity series.
Me a car as fast as Xfinity Mobile, and
Man, that thing was as fast as Xfinity Mobile.
I was as fast as Xfinity Internet.
Yeah.
And I've been doing a lot of deep thinking about this week, about actually how there's a lot of parallels with NASCAR and the NBA. Because right now, the NBA is going through a period where big stars are retiring. Like, you know, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony.
LeBron James.
Is going to retire here pretty soon. And the NBA is kind of being faced with an identity crisis of who their next star is going to be. And there's a lot of criticism about how they are pumping up USA athletes versus European athletes. I know this sounds like I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I honestly feel like NASCAR went through it back in the mid-2010s. So
Totally
the problem that happened, and why I'm talking about how the NBA is pumping up people from Europe versus the United States and like college basketball, is that NASCAR in the late 2000s to early 2010s in the Xfinity series or series at the time, they were having all the cup drivers run down in the series. And so what happened is it really stifled the talent that was coming up into the ranks of the cup. So if you look at some of the rookie of the years in the cup series from like, I don't know, around like 2011 to 2015, there are people that you've never even heard of or you forgot about.
Let's bring up our Rookie of the Year, Kevin Conway.
In 2011, I got to achieve a dream.
So at least it's good news for Stephen Light. Maybe not so good news for the Beaver.
The problem is that when you had those new drivers coming up, you had that period of time where the stars were retiring. Your Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s, your Jeff Gordon's, Jimmy Johnson was fizzling out. Rusty Wallace and Mark Martin were long gone by that time. So all of those big name heavy hitters in the sport were retiring, and especially when Dale Jr. left, they were struggling to find that next face of NASCAR.
And that's where I kind of fell off too, like, because I went through a period of, gosh, I don't even know how long, where I wasn't watching. And then I kind of just randomly picked it back up again a year before the next gen car, I think. But yeah, a lot of NASCAR fans, including myself, and I know my people in my family too, just started to fall off.
Well, I did, because my driver Bobby Labonte, once he left Petty, he bounced around and he just wasn't winning any races. You know, kind of like a field filler. He ran his course just like all the stars kind of did. And so once everybody's driver was out and there wasn't that next star to cling on to just yet, they just kind of gave it up. But now that you have the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series, you have these teams building programs. So you have these people that have come through the program, such as Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. They all started in like the K&N series and went up through, and now they're these big name stars. They're starting to become household names again, right? And that's what NASCAR really needs. They need to market their stars. And so I'm really enjoying watching NASCAR finally come back, because they're starting to figure out who their stars are again. And they're not allowing those cup drivers to run all the Busch Series races to cut out the new talent. So that's why you're having Jesse Love, Connor Zilic, Carson Quaffle, all these new names that are coming up that you already know about because they've been able to blossom and grow in the starter series, and now they're making waves.
I think the Truck Series, Xfinity, Sprint Cup, they all have really good drivers in them right now too. So I think that there's something to be said for that. Like, I think we went through kind of a period where it was a little bit of a mixed bag, but there's really strong drivers in every series right now that are, like you said, kind of bringing fans with them, and people are following them and they're enjoying watching them race. And we've got drivers like that in every series right now. And especially when they kind of jump into other series too, that just keeps it going. So
Right, because growing up in the 90s, I mean, yes, you had the Mark Martins who ran Xfinity races all the time, but Bobby Labonte won a Busch Series championship. Tony Stewart didn't win a Busch Series championship, but he was in the Busch Series for a year or two before he was in Cup. Dale Jr. won 2 Busch Series titles. All these big-name drivers started in the Xfinity Series because that's how it always was. And then it kind of grew into just a playground for the Cup Series drivers, and that's when it all kind of dwindled down. So I think NASCAR, as much as I criticize them and everybody criticizes them, they're at least doing that right by keeping Xfinity and trucks as filler series. Yes, you have your regulars and like Matt Crafton and Justin Allgaier. Those are needed. Those guys that are clawing their way to success in those series, and maybe they'll get a shot or two in upper series, but you need that for the storylines and whatnot, and they're good race car drivers as well. But it's just a good system, and NASCAR has been sticking to it, and you get in those marquee guys, a race or two here and there, just to, for attendance purposes, which I think is totally fine. I want to give them credit, and I really feel like that was shown today with that next generation of stars.
not to say that the old guys suck or
No,
they're
they
bad.
don't.
They certainly still have a lot of talent. There are definitely times where we've seen them run out of talent. You really about to do it? But
Denny Hamlin.
it's just a good mix right now. You've got a lot of really young, talented drivers that are going to keep the sport going. We've got a really strong fan base for some of these younger drivers, like Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson have really strong fan bases. So I think NASCAR's kind of started to figure it out. I think they're doing a decent job. I see more younger people getting into the sport and watching it.
I do too.
Kind of reminiscing on watching it as kids. And that's what we need, because if you don't have younger people watching, you're not going to have many people watching pretty soon.
No. So let's look forward to Phoenix next week. Classically, Phoenix is not that exciting of a race. So this is my hope. Goodyear this year has really impressed me. They're really trying to improve the tires. They showed it this weekend at COTA. There was significant tire fall off, which I think played in a very important role. Kyle was hanging on until his right rear gave out and he couldn't keep it on the track anymore. You need more of that. If you push your equipment too much, you're going to lose spots. It's just the nature of the beast. Yeah. And so I applaud Goodyear for that. I just hope that they bring a tire similar to what they brought to Martinsville in the fall, or whatever combination is similar to that that's appropriate for Phoenix. Because remember watching Martinsville and the whole track was caked in rubber, and it was all the tire fall off and you could pass, and Blaney was able to work his way back up and win.
Yep.
They need a tire compound that will achieve that, but at Phoenix. Goodyear has answered the call so far. I just hope they continue to do that. It's a wait and see approach with Phoenix. I wish that they would go away from it for the championship race. They need to go to a 1.5 miles or Homestead or something, because Phoenix is just not it. I know NASCAR poured a whole lot of money into it to redesign it, have the start finish line right before the dog leg and whatnot. But man, the racing it's not what it needs to be. I think it should go back to Homestead because it makes sense weather-wise. Racing is good. Miami's a good market. Granted, I know they're outside of Miami, but I think that makes the most sense. Sorry, Phoenix. Not sorry. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in yet again. Just a reminder, click the bell, hit subscribe, comment down below what you want us to talk about or what you want to hear or thoughts about what we talked about. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'm sure you mostly disagree, but that's okay. That's what this is for. All right, everybody, have a good week, and we will see you next week when we talk about